Welcome everybody, and yet another extraordinary year. I can't believe it's only a year since we last met like this, and such extraordinary things have happened. And we are praying, we are having our meeting in the middle of COP27, of course. And last year we were thinking very much and praying for COP26. So a lot has been happening, and we just have to keep a steady course. So you'll be hearing from several of us later on, lots of things that we're going to be doing. And it's lovely to have you all. I'm just going to hand over very quickly now to Andrew to open in prayer, formally our opening prayer for the meeting. Thank you.
The God who calls all people to justice and care for the earth. As we meet together, as we listen, as we talk, as we reflect, as you lead us, hear and grant these prayers through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Andrew. As ever, as George said, we are quite a busy organisation, but we are almost 100% voluntary, and I will talk about that a bit later on. So you'll be able to hear more about what we get up to and what you can also get involved with. But for now, we're a couple of minutes ahead of time, which is probably just as well, considering we have quite a packed schedule. And we will go through last year's minutes. So this is just to give you a chance to have a look at what happened last year, whether you were here or not. Here are the people who were able to be here and the people who gave apologies. And as usual, we opened at 10 with welcome and opening prayer. I must say, it's rather wonderful to be able to do this with Zoom, because otherwise it was a matter, we thought again about this, the fact that we can now meet in person. And we thought again quite hard about this, but in fact it gives people an opportunity who wouldn't normally be able to travel to, say, London for a meeting, and also to record it for those who would like to watch later. So George last year presented the annual report from Green Christian. Eleanor presented the accounts. I'll just leave you a few seconds to have a look at that. On to the next page. We actually finished the year last year with money to spend on our activities, which was rather good, both restricted and unrestricted fund. We did try to invest in an ethical fund without success. They wanted, I think, more money than we could put in. And that's just a reminder, if you know of an ethical fund, investment account for charities, we would love to hear from you. Okay, we bank with a co-op and have savings in the Ecology Building Society. Barbara presented our strategy and received feedback. Breakout groups discussed the questions, what have we done that has been helpful to this year to you personally? And what else can you suggest that would nourish you and help develop Green Christian? Well, this produced an absolute harvest of responses, huge responses, diversity and inclusion, online meetings as against offline meetings, courses, lots and lots of ideas, what we should focus on, biodiversity, loaf, divestment is, we do think about divestment. I'm not going to dwell on that right now. Greening money, diet, more about food, local transport, all sorts of things, biodiversity. And in fact, this year's Storm of Hope is going to be on biodiversity. It hasn't begun yet, but if you have any ideas, send them straight to me at deborahtompkins@greenchristian.org.uk. Best things we did this year. Well, that's good. Plenty is excellent, and I completely agree. The retreat, which is usually every other year. All sorts of things on the website. C-Link is a resource. Local groups are a resource. On the road events, and so on. Radical presence in deep waters. The sense of community, which is what we do try. We do feel we are a community. And then lots of suggestions for the following year. Now, some of these we will have been able to start and others we haven't. So we'll be talking about those a little bit later on. Posters, I must say the posters were great. And we always have an ongoing call for people who are skilled at facilitating as well. So I think that was just about it. That was it on the one or two. Yeah, that was it. So those are last year's minutes, and may we approve them, please? Marvellous. So I'm going to hand over, I believe, to George, aren't I? Now at 10:10 for the annual report. Thank you, George. We can lower our hands if we want to. Otherwise, it looks like we want to ask her a question. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, Deborah. I'm so glad you did the technical stuff there. I would have been completely lost. Anyway, so what we're going to do now is look at what we've been doing for the past year. And as I said earlier, just introducing the agenda, that all of your Green Christian members will have received a paper copy of this anyway, in some detail. So I'm not going to concentrate on numbers, like numbers of hits on websites and followers on Instagram and Facebook and so on. Needless to say, the trend is upwards, so that's very, very good. But I will be concentrating on some of the highlights of what the various groups do and have been doing in Green Christian, and also highlight the really particularly valuable contributions that a number of people have been making. So that's what we'll do during this 15-minute session. So I'm going to share a screen with you, and I hope this works. I'm sure it will do. Right, here we go. Okay, so this is just the highlights of what we've been up to in the past year. What we've been doing, it's interesting from my perspective anyway, because when I started to compile this report based on the various group conveners, I'm going to talk about groups in a minute. The day I started to do this, then the UK hit the highest temperature it's ever hit. And what that said to me really was that, climate change is really coming home, it's not some far off country. It's here, and I just thought that was particularly poignant at the time that I was doing this. So how we've been going forward with Green Christian is, and how we'll highlight it in this report, is again what the various groups have been doing. This is how Green Christian works. There's lots of informal things that go on, which are really exciting. But we have groups. We have the formation group, the borrowed time group, the engagement and inclusion group, online media, print media, administration, and joy and enough. And that's where the kind of structured work in the deep. All of those groups have meetings throughout the year and then report into 3 board meetings each year. The formation group plays a kind of central role in a lot of the new work that's done in Green Christian and being considered in Green Christian before action is done, in consultation with the other groups. Now, one of the things that was mentioned in the minutes last year was strategy. And we were looking at what we're going to be doing over the next sort of 3 to 5 years. And we've been taking this forward more and more. I'm just going to close the door because my wife is playing recorder downstairs and she hasn't closed the door. Hold on a sec. Right, it's a beautiful sound actually, but it's kind of gets in the way of what I'm doing. We've continued that work with the strategy, looking at the next 3 to 5 years, and indeed beyond there as well. It's very much an evolving process. So we've looked at the big pictures, what we might consider doing, for instance, or doing things that we haven't done before and improving some of the things that we have been doing before. And of course, during that COVID period, which was still continuing in the first half of the past year, we were thinking of all sorts of, I think, very creative ways of doing things. But as we were coming out of that, we've started to meet up again, which is really, really lovely. And that's made us think about new ways of doing things. We don't have anything which is kind of publishable, which is out there, because we haven't actually agreed a specific strategy. But as soon as we do, we will get that out there. But we're really looking at our future vision up to 2030. The second thing which the Formation Group looks at is conferences and events. And some of you will have attended both via Zoom and also in person our conference, which focused recently on the Join Enough program in Birmingham. So that was just a fantastic conference, and a lot of that is on our YouTube video channel, which again I'll talk about later. Our Way of Life community, which is offered to all Green Christian members. We have a set of spiritual disciplines, 4 of them: prayer, living gently in the earth, public witness, and engagement, or encouragement rather. The situation at the moment is that we have 67 companions and 14 explorers, and those companions are in 14 regional groups up and down the country who can meet in any way that is appropriate for them. We send out monthly letters. We have every 2 months we have Zoom meetings, and for the first time in 3 years, I think it is, we're going to be meeting again in person in London at the end of January. So that's very, very exciting. Retreats is another thing that the Formation Group start off designing, if you like. And we used to have those every year before COVID, and then we decided to have them every 2 years. The current situation at the moment, and again, we still have to take it to the board meeting, which is next week, but the Formation Group have been working on this, and what's likely to happen is that we have our next retreat in 2024, and it's going to be a sort of different way of doing it, but it's definitely, I think, going to go ahead, so that will be fine. We've been working with ordinands. The reason for this is that a lot of the creation care teaching which is being done in theological colleges in England is, well, in some cases very good, in some cases very patchy. So sometimes it's only perhaps an elective, an optional elective, and it seems to us that's not really enough. What we've been doing for some time now, for the past year or so, is trying to make meaningful and sustainable and contacts with theological colleges. That's taken the form of what we already provide free magazine and free membership to ordinands in 3 years. And we provide them with a magazine, that's all part of it. But we're also trying to influence, if you like, the teaching that goes on there as well. And we're offering to go in and perhaps hold workshops and so on and so forth in a number of colleges. We're concentrating in 3 at the moment. And also trying to keep in contact with ordinands after they reorganize, when they become deacons and curates and so on. So it's an ongoing relationship. We also have policies, as any good organisation should. I'm not going to dwell on those, but they're all on the website if you wanted to have a look at them. The second group that I wanted to have a look at was Borrowed Time. Now, Borrowed Time is a project which seeks to prepare people for the emotional, moral, and existential challenges of climate destabilisation. And now it's got its own dedicated website. There's really two specific programs that are running, or about, one has been running for some time, and that's Deep Waters. It's a program of 8 sessions of guided reflection and discussion, exploring climate grief and eco-anxiety. And I believe there's been 4 of those that have run over the last few years, and a 5th one is currently being run. Again, the materials are now also available online for groups to use, and churches and so on. A further program, which is Cloud and Fire, is on pastoral care for communities, and that's being developed. So you'll hear more about that in time. The Borrowed Time program leaders are Duncan Forbes, Paul Bodenham, and Deborah Tompkins. The next one which we'll look at is engagement and inclusion. Now that group seeks to increase engagement in Green Christian's aims and activities, especially by resourcing individuals and local initiatives and groups, and supports the inclusion and to encourage the contributions of a diverse range of people, especially those who are underrepresented. Now, that group has explored opportunities for outreach, meeting with diocesan environmental officers and younger adults, and always seeking new volunteers for this group. So that's going to crop up later, I'm sure, in the breakout groups. We're really very keen on increasing diversity in membership, and arranging more online workshops is important as well. We've got 15 local groups in Green Christian. 3 new local groups started off this year, which was in Colchester, Sheffield, and indeed Scotland. So we've gone international. We've gone over the border. I'm really pleased to hear you Scottish. The On the Road Together events, where we go out and those are generally organised regionally with some sort of content from the centre, if you like. And those, after COVID, have now started to be run again rather. And in the past few months, we've had Colchester, Dronfield, Edinburgh, Saltburn, and York. So we're getting out to the regions as well, which is really, really lovely. We walk alongside those of faith and no faith. So we support a number of organisations who are not part of Green Christian, and indeed who are if you like, secular organisations that are involved in the environment. I'm not going to list all those. There's lots of them. There's 10 listed on the annual report, the paper copy, so you can have a look at those. Okay, let's see. We're now looking at online media. Online media, right. So the Green Christian, this is run incidentally. I should say the engagement inclusion is run by Isabel Murdoch. The online media group the convener is Barbara Eklund, and that leads all our online media outlets and reviews what we'll be covering over the next few months. So there's the website, and several people to mention there is Colin Andrews, does lots of technical backup. We'd be lost without you, Colin. Stephanie Butcher, when we have any design issues. Emma King with a prayer diary page. Ed Beale edits the magazine page. And we have other Green Christian websites, Join Enough, edited by Jeremy Williams, and Borrowed Time, edited by Paul Bodenham. We have lots of followers on social media. That's on our Facebook page, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, and also in GC News, Green Christian News, which Ruth Jarman and Judith Allenson do, and Emma King does the prayer diary. So the next one, sorry to run through this, it's a pile of work that's done on all of these things, but I'm just giving you some highlights. Print media covers leaflets, magazines, Storm of Hope, posters, and any other publications which are for one-off events. And that's the convener for that is Howard Gardner. A number of people to mention, too many to mention, but I'll mention just one at the moment. and that's Claire Redfern, who's here with us, I'm sure, today. I think I saw her. And she is the editor of the Green Christian magazine, which comes out twice a year. The administration group, Barbara is also the convener of that group as well. Oops, there we go. And that's keeping things moving and working efficiently. It deals with any membership inquiries, any new members that are coming in, and also HR for the few people that we actually employ for a few hours each week. And I sort of handle the kind of HR side of things. So administration, I mean, that's a massive piece of work. So to give it 3 bullet points isn't sufficient, but I won't go into too much more at the moment, I think. One of the things I will talk about for a little bit longer is the Join Enough project. That's been the programme which has been a key focus for us for the past couple of years. And many of you, I think I mentioned earlier, will have attended the Join Enough, the recent Green Christian conference in Birmingham, which was focused mainly on Join Enough. So that's about building a just economy within the Earth's ecological limits. The Plenty programme is a small group study resource for churches and over 6 weeks, and that covers inequality, consumerism, social justice and environment, and all approach to conversation and discussion. Join Enough now has its own website, loads of information on that as well, and also we have the Zoom talks, the Join Enough Zoom talks. 8 have been held. Well, since as of August of this year, so I guess there's been more held since then as well. And we have a Join Enough newsletter as well. That particular programme is run by John Payne. They're doing fantastic work. Okay, so I'm coming on to my final slides. Sorry about the PowerPoint slides. I think in the next presentation, I think Deborah's actually got some pictures rather than just a list of bullet points. But I'm going to mention a number of additional people who are involved in this that I think you would be interested to know about. Our trustees, the trustees for Green Christian are myself and Deborah as co-chairs, Barbara as vice chair, Eleanor Orr as treasurer and company secretary, Paul Bodenham, Tim Cooper, John Payne, Ashley Ralston, Andrew Norman, who is also our chaplain, who has supported so many projects throughout the year, which is great. Jules Robinson, Andy Boucher, and Isabel Murdoch. And in addition to that, at our board meetings, we also have Judith Allinson as web editor, Ruth as administrator, Howard Gardner as print manager, and as I mentioned earlier, Claire as commissioning editor for the magazine. Should point out patrons. We have a new patron who has just come on board, and that is Shilpita Matthews. And Shilpita, I've got it on a piece of paper here somewhere. Shilpita is a younger member than most of us, which is always a very, very good thing. So we're delighted to welcome her as a patron. She's an environmental economist and focuses on climate resilience and sustainable cities. She's passionate about linking faith and climate justice, and is an active member of the Young Christian Climate Network, getting young people and the private sector involved in climate action. So I think that's a wonderful addition to our already great list of patrons. I mentioned also some part-time employees. Some of those have already been mentioned. I think pretty much all of them have already been mentioned. Maybe a couple haven't. Hilary Blake, who works mainly in the Join Enough programme as fundraiser, and also Kat Jenkins, who's been doing lots of work in general Green Christian admin stuff, but also specifically in the Plenty programme. And I think possibly that's it. I'm possibly about a couple of minutes overrun, but I think that's an overview of the sorts of things that we've been doing in the past year. And I'm going to hand over to Deborah.
No, first of all, the accounts, George.
Oh, the accounts, you're quite right. Sorry, I'm so forgetting the accounts. So I'm going to stop sharing this.
Okay. And this is an extract from the main accounts. The full accounts are available from our website on the About page, as is the annual report, and our full accounts are also on the Charity Commission website. It's important to note they're the figures for the calendar year 2021, as accounts are drawn up on a calendar year basis. Another thing to note is that we're sharing these accounts with you, our members, at this meeting. But the way Green Christian is structured, the accounts, in fact, were officially signed off by the trustees, approved at the July meeting and signed off in September before they were sent into the Charity Commission and Company's House. So we won't be having you voting on them, in other words, but we do want to share with you our financial situation. And obviously, any questions you may have on them, if I or one of the other trustees can answer them, that's all well and good. But with Eleanor not being here, we'll make a note of your question if we can't answer it, and Eleanor will provide us with a reply, which we'll send out to everyone. So Eleanor very kindly sent me the notes that she would have been giving you, so I'm going to read them out, and you'll be able to see the what we're talking about on the extract from the accounts that's on the screen for you. So financially, this was a good year for CEL Green Christian. I should also just remind you, Christian Ecology Link is still our official name, but we have a trading name, Green Christian, which is what we use and have used for the last 8, 9, 10 years. So there's a good year for CEL and Green Christian. Our total income was £57,000 and expenditure was £46,000. So we made a surplus for the year and now have healthy reserves which will be available to fund new projects, expansion of existing work to cover in the event that income does not continue at this rate, though obviously we hope it will. Expenditure was still curtailed a bit in 2021. You may remember we still had huge problems with COVID, and it still hasn't gone away, but they were much more severe in 2021, less than in 2020, and Ellen is hopeful that in 2022 it will turn out to be a bit less of the pandemic effect. So looking at the income part of the figures in front of you, where was that? Sorry, subscriptions and general donations. And many of these general donations come with the subs. Otherwise, people give subscriptions that are above our main membership subscription rate. Those are both continuing to rise. So thank you to anyone on this call. I think you're all members, but thank you for your financial support. The grants and major donations is less in 2021 than in 2020, but this was expected. We still had the £12,000 grant from the Passionists, for which we are very grateful indeed, and Join Enough had unused income from 2020 for their project, which had come from grants and which they used in 2021. The 2021 legacy was from Ed Eklund, my husband, and who was a great supporter of Green Christian. So that's the income. The expenditure, scroll that up a bit. Printing and salaries continue to be the main costs, 6 to 7 staff, but each working only a few hours per week, as George outlined in the annual report. COP21 costs, we produced that beautiful infographic visual presentation, which we have actually adapted. We produced it and used it for COP26, and then beginning of this year, we revised it to make it a presentation of why faith matters for climate change. So it's still very much a usable resource. It's there as a PowerPoint format. You can use it as a basis for a talk, for example. You can get it on the website. We spent a lot of money on Join Enough, including a lot of work on Plenty, the course for study groups to follow and get an idea around our crazy economy. Very good to have been able to arrange an actual in-person retreat in Ringsfield, which had been intended for the previous year, but held over, but we managed to still go there in October of 2021, and therefore there was the expenditure for that. Of course, we also took income in to pay for it. Balance sheet, and the next page here. And as Eleanor says, there's never a great deal to say here. Most of Green Christian's money is in the bank or similar places. Our attempts to buy a longer-term investment founded on regulations which did not permit a charity to buy any of the ethical investments that we identified. And then she has a reminder, accruals. They are mostly subs paid late in the year, which are held over to 2022. And the deferred income arises from life membership income, which is then spread over 15 years. So both are effectively accounting devices. So those of you who generously take out a life membership, which off the top of my head is something like £450, we don't splurge your money all in the same year. We safely squirrel it away and we take from that life membership fund over a period of time to use it. So that's the finish of Eleanor's notes. Would it be better if perhaps I'll leave this up to the moment in case there are any questions that people have that we need to refer to this balance sheet. Or would it be better to come out of this, I wonder, and have the gallery up so we can see people? That might be better. I can always go back to this if we need to. Right.
I will just add that if you think of something afterwards, or you think of something while we're doing the next bit, do pop it in the chat. And we may not be able to get back to you today, but we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Colin has his hand up. Colin, go ahead.
Yes, just for the sake of clarity, I wonder if events, and particularly something like the retreat, should be just separated out, or it should be very clear in the income and the expenditure, those costs on those income that was specific to that, because it's just conceptually, did it balance out okay, or are we subsidizing that? Because those who don't go to those things may be concerned if there's a lot of cross subsidy, say from annual subscriptions, that's subsidizing a weekend away.
I can respond
to
that.
Or the opposite, of course, the opposite.
Yeah, I can respond to that. I've only shown you the extract. If you look at the full accounts, everything is itemized and you've got the full details there. And you can get access to the full accounts from the Green Christian website on the accounts page. And if you've got any questions on them then, please do come back to us, but everything is fully itemized. I could probably find the page. If any other questions? If not, I find it. No, because that literally is just the summary for the meeting.
That's fine, thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't look into the details. So.
No, you didn't have access to the details yet. So
yeah.
okay,
there's no need to do that now. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone, or any comments? If not, we'll move on to more exciting things. And I can promise you, we're not splurging all your money you give us on nice days out or weekends by the sea. And I just want to add the huge, great gratitude we all to our 7 or 8 paid employees, because my goodness, for the small amount of hours that they work, we're deeply grateful to them for all that they do. Okay, it looks like I don't see any more hands waving, so we can go on to Deborah with possibilities for engagement.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. Yes, I'm going to share my screen as well. There are pictures on this one, so that's quite helpful, I think. Rest our eyes a little bit from all the tiny writing. So let's see if it'll come up. Yes, it will. There we go. Well, I'm going to put it in as a slideshow. There we go. So nice and big. So this is opportunities for engagement, Green Christian activities, and all about joining in. We really, really want people to join in as much as possible, and also to understand what is available to join in with. So I will be covering a little bit of the same ground that you've already heard, but in a different way. So do bear with. So how Green Christian works, we are a dispersed organisation led and run by volunteers. We have no head office, we have no office at all. We all work from home in our spare time, like local volunteer groups such as local history societies and brownies, and also churches. We sometimes meet up, but we most often Zoom in. We have 3 board meetings a year, and we occasionally, bump into each other at events, but mostly we Zoom in. And we rely on our volunteers and always welcome more people getting involved. Our 12 trustees all have roles and are actively involved, and we pay our membership subs like everybody else. We like to read the signs of the times and try new things. So, for example, Operation Noah, our sister charity, was founded a number of years ago as one of our campaigns and is now a separate charity. Join Enough, as you heard, has its own website and does a lot of work without having to come back to us all the time, although it is a campaign. Loaf, which I'll come back to in a minute, and Borrowed Time. We listen to our membership and we love to welcome new volunteers, which I might have mentioned before a couple of times. On the Road Together days, this is the Edinburgh one. These are regional days organised by a local church or a group of churches together, that's the kind of thing, with Green Christian speakers. And here is John Purdy in Edinburgh. Each day is a little different. So it depends on the local group, what they want to do. We always like to have some input from Green Christian. So the Green Christian way of life, which I will come on to in a minute, is it's been described as the beating heart of Green Christian. And I'll explain why in a minute. Join Enough is a very important part of our work. Lunch, of course, is important, and refreshments. And some people do a bring and share, some people do a loaf lunch, and I'll come on to loaf again in a minute. Christian climate action sometimes appears, and there will be other shared activities. Every day has a completely different flavour. I've been to 4 and they were all entirely different, despite the commonalities. So there might be a prayer walk, there might be craft. Some in Manchester, they made a banner, beautiful banner, and there was craft all day in the church hall, music, all sorts of things. The world, you can, if you want to get involved with this and ask us to come to a Green Christian on the Road day that you are organising, please do. And here we are. This is them outside. I think they had some prayer outside in Edinburgh. The Green Christian way of life community, finding our path and walking gently together. There's a video, this is taken from the website. There's a video on the website with me. There's one also from George, or even 2 from George, I'm not sure. Many spiritual communities find that a rule or a way of life with a set of disciplines really, really helps. And we decided that that would be helpful for us too. The 4 disciplines of the way: daily prayer and devotions, living gently on the earth, public witness, and encouragement. And personally, I'm a member and I find it tremendously helpful. Local Green Christian groups. Well, here's a little map. I think it may be slightly out of date, but a little map of groups. Do have a look. This is also taken from the website. Usually set up by a Green Christian member or members, and they may include other people who aren't, and that's fine. And they meet regularly or semi-regularly. They have all sorts of activities: loaf meals, walks, campaigns, discussions, invited speakers, worship and prayer, and other things. The Cheltenham group meets regularly and has been doing so for a very long time for prayer, and this is now extended to all via Zoom. So join a group or start your own. And I omitted to say, please join the Way of Life community if you feel that would be helpful to you as well. But this is a way of building solidarity, building community, particularly for people who may feel a little isolated in their churches because of their passion and commitment to climate and environment. Food, loaf, harvest. Use your loaf. I've mentioned loaf a couple of times. It stands for local, organic, animal-friendly, and fair trade food. And we have here all sorts of resources on this page, which is under food. It's under the food section on the website. Ideas for eating together, church resources, posters and leaflets, and a blog. And here's a little bit more. It's a long-standing campaign, which has been adopted all over the UK. We've even had the experience on a retreat of being told by other people on a different retreat in the same place, all about loaf and how important it was. And I think the conversation was with Barbara, and Barbara said, yes, we know about loaf, we invented it, which was rather lovely. You don't have to do everything at once. I've heard numerous times a criticism that actually buying organic and buying fair trade is quite expensive. And certainly it is more expensive than mass-produced food. But it's all to do with how we not only steward the planet, look after the planet, but how we care for creation and our calling as Christians. So we would like to revive this. It's been around for ages. It's great. And we passionately believe in it. And Tim Cooper is the person to contact if you would like to use your loaf and be involved more in our loaf and food and harvest resources. The media, as George has already mentioned, this is just a brief overview, but look at the webpage there. We have so much going on. If you feel that you could be involved in any of this, if you like writing, if you've got skills to bring, please get in touch with us and you'll be put in touch with the right person. There's lots going on. I'll just go back to that. Claire, for example, I'm sure would welcome ideas for articles. She may not be able to use them all, but I'm sure she would welcome to hear. And I always welcome input for Storm of Hope, which I'm going to be putting together in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We go to our final copy will be mid-December for printing in January. The arts page, this is going slightly under the radar at the moment, but as you can see, the talent that's out there, if you would like to send in a picture of art, environmentally inspired art, Christian art that you have produced, please do. We also have a poetry page, so please do send in your work, your artistic expression. YouTube, look at YouTube. If you haven't already, we have a wealth of resources on our YouTube channel, and you can just see a list down there. So, and tell people about it, get people having a look. People do like their looking at things when they're cooking or eating a meal sometimes or whatever. Get them to have a look and see what we provide. And we also have fortnightly workshops on which are recorded. There's lots going on. Communicating. We communicate with each other in all sorts of ways. C-Link is really important. It's a chat forum for members only. Facebook is open to everybody. Twitter, there are regular updates, although Twitter may be imploding, as we all know. Instagram, if you can help with Instagram, we would love to hear from you, actually, because the lady who's running, who's been doing Instagram for us is really very unwell at the moment. We communicate a lot. Contributions are always needed and welcome. So here are some of the ideas. Only some of the ideas. If there are other things that you have heard of and they're not in this little presentation, get in touch. Borrowed time. George has already mentioned journeying with you through climate grief. And the first project is Deep Waters. It's designed for groups either in person or online. In fact, we've just finished our 6th run. You can sign up to the next course, which is in January, or organise your own. All the resources are provided. It's pretty well foolproof and it's free to use. Moving on to Joy in Enough, Awakening to a New Economics. It's a challenge. It's relevant, positive, holistically Christian, invitational, generous, and conversational. It's a fantastic resource. This is the Joy in Enough website with interesting blogs, really interesting blogs. And this is the Plenty course. Do have a look. You can sign up for that. It's free to use. All the resources are included. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to use. And I think it's ideal for Lent, but at any time of year. 6 weeks. That's absolutely fabulous course. Other activities, day workshops, conferences, online events, retreats, campaigns, festivals, and we provide speakers. Can you get involved? Would you like to be involved in any of these? So it's over to you now. We're going to break into plenary groups, into breakout groups, and then come back at 11:05 for plenary feedback. What would you like to get involved with? Or what has spoken to you most this morning, to you personally? How can you practically help? What can you offer? What can you bring? Because we all rely on our volunteer base, and the more volunteers we have, the more we can do.
Right, we're drawing to a close. I just want to say to those of you who are in the Green Christian Way of Life group, you will know we're having a gathering 28th of January in London in person. If you're not a member of the Green Christian Way of Life group, both George and Deborah mentioned it, do have a look on the website or get in touch with George, who leads that. We've got something like 60 to 80 different companions in that now, and we have regional groups that keep in touch at least occasionally by email. And once a year we have a gathering, and this year we're actually going to go ahead and have 2023. We're going to have our first gathering in a couple of years. The Joy in Enough talks have started up again once a month, and the next one is on the 15th of November, and it's by Angus Hanton. And I'm trying to think of the name. It's the organisation deals with intergenerational justice on financial and monetary issues. I have heard it before, and he's a good speaker. You can see details of that on the website and register to join in. And finally, Deborah mentioned Deep Waters. Another course is starting in January, in the new year. So if you haven't done Deep Waters, that's the wrong way to put it. It's not a course, it's an experience. If you haven't been involved in the Deep Waters sessions, then this is your chance to try after Christmas and find a little bit more about our Borrowed Time project and how we are coping with current dire climate forecasts that we're all having to face. So I think that is bringing us to a close. George, do you want to say a few words before we hand over to Andrew for the final prayer?
No, I don't think so. I just, other than to say thank you so much, everyone, for coming this morning. There's a lot going on outside in terms of marches, days of action, and so on. And I know some of you will be going off to do that as well. So thank you for giving up your time to be with us. It's really an important day, the annual members meeting. I know there's a lot of business to go through and so on, but and it's a great opportunity for us to hear from you. So thank you for everything, and we'll see you again hopefully. And over to Andrew, I think, for closing prayer.
Let's finish with one of the prayers from the Our Sow the Love collection which is on the website. And this one's by Penny McCulloch. Let's just be still for a moment. Show the love, God, whose heart is the center of the universe, whose being is interfused with the world. You look on all people with love. Your name is Agatha. You look on the child with the empty bowl and ask us why we do not share. You look at the lonely old man and ask why we are unfriendly. You see the plastic in the ocean and ask why we take so much. God, whose heart is the center of the universe, whose being is interfused with the world, inspire us to look on all people with love and to flourish immersed in agape. Forgive us when we take too much because we can pay for it, but do not count the true cost. Forgive us when we overlook the forgotten because we don't know them, but do not count their true worth. Forgive us so that we can begin anew to look on all people with love and flourish, immersed with agape. Amen.